Good evening, everyone, and welcome to REDservations with Chef Lucmann Pierre. Welcome to the Rochester Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated's virtual May Week 2020 virtual Red Reality. And you are in for a special treat today. We have a wonderful special guest with us, and I am going to hand it over to Sora Barkley so she could talk a little bit more about our guest.
So not only is this guest a friend of mine, but he is the bomb. He is passionate about his craft. He adores his clients and has had the distinct honor of preparing meals for dignitaries such as President Bill Clinton and other signatures in the United States Senate. And so he's an amazing chef. He is a James Beard award-winning chef. And so I'm just lucky to have him tonight to share his talents with you all. And also, just so you know, he is a private chef as well out of the Boston area, but he loves to travel and he is available for hire across the country. So I just want to say that as well. So welcome, Chef Lucmann Pierre.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being with us. And for everybody who is participating with this virtual cooking demonstration, I just want to have you turn your ovens on right now to 375 so you can let them warm up a little bit. So Sora Livingston, any questions that you might want to ask?
Nothing yet so far. We've got a couple of people that are saying hello. But Chef, do you want to talk to us a little bit about what you're making today, what you have?
Sure, absolutely. So first, I just want to thank you guys for bringing me in to be a part of your amazing week. I want to thank Monet for reaching out, a great friend of mine. And as I mentioned to you guys, the minute she called me, I knew I had to deliver for her. So it's an honor to be here. I'm excited for the opportunity to showcase my craft to you guys. And hopefully those of you cooking will learn something today. I'm gonna go through first. This is the dish I made on the Today Show several years ago. I've never done it for anybody else. First time I'm actually doing it live again. So you guys are the first to get the full segment that I did on the Today Show with Alan Walker several years ago. So I'm excited to do it again. And yeah, whenever you guys are ready to go, I'm ready to get started, and yeah, we're gonna have a good time.
All right, so we are gonna get started, but really quickly before we do, if anybody who's participating has any questions that they want to ask, whether it's about the meal or general cooking questions, tips and tricks, feel free to shoot those in the comments at any point in time as we'll be watching those. So Chef Luke.
I want questions. This is the opportunity for you guys to learn. So I want questions, and I'm here. Use the opportunity to get all your common questions answered.
All right, so let's get started.
All right, so first things first, as mentioned, we got our oven on at 375. So the dish we're making today, as mentioned, we are making a chicken lobster roulade. Accompanying that, we're gonna have Shiitake Mushroom wine sauce, and we're gonna have roasted blue potatoes. Actually, I had to switch my blue potatoes. We have purple sweet potatoes. Unfortunately, when I went to the store, they didn't have the product that I wanted. So there's always substitutions that happens in the kitchen. So gotta improvise. As mentioned in my notes, you guys.
Uh-oh, looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Bear with us. Looks like Chef is on mute.
You have me?
Yes.
Yes.
We lost you for just a second. Can you go back a little bit? You were talking about substitutions, and we actually had a question in the chat where somebody couldn't find fresh basil. So she was wondering, is there an equivalent or something that you can use?
The dried basil is just as fine.
Would it be the same measurement, or how much of that would you want to use?
No, the dry basil is actually stronger, so you want to kind of just use just a little pinch. And as I'll go through it, and as you guys will see, I'll kind of demonstrate. Depending on how much you're cooking, I'm not sure if you're cooking for your whole family. I'm working with just one breast, so I'm just going to use one little pinch, and really basically for every breast that you're doing just like one slight pinch over to kind of drizzle over, not too much. Again, because you're using several different spices, you want to make sure you balance them. So just a pinch of each item. So if you have two breasts, one pinch on each breast, and you want to kind of do it on both sides. And yeah, so I always like to encourage using fresh ingredients, especially now with COVID. A lot of vendors are not, they don't have the fresh products. So definitely feel free to substitute, but I always encourage you to use the fresh as much as possible.
Then we had another question about substitutions.
Sure.
What can you substitute for lobster or shrimp? Because I think this guest does not eat seafood.
Does it eat any seafood? I mean, basically, you can do whatever you like. If you want to make it with just vegetables, feel free to do that. I just created this one with lobster. I've had it done for clients with just regular fish, their favorite fish. Scallops. So if you don't do seafood at all, you can omit the seafood and just go with just some vegetables. And you can incorporate any type of vegetable you like in there too. I made it with the ingredients that I have here, but any of those, whatever your favorite vegetable, you can incorporate that in there as well.
Okay, so let's continue.
All right, so first things first, and as I go through this, I'm going to give you guys some kitchen tips and tricks to make things easier in your kitchen, to work with safe environment. But one of the things I always like to tell folks is when you have your cutting board down, as you can see, my cutting board can slide. And when you're using a knife, it's very, dangerous to kind of use a knife with a moving cutting board. One of the things I do is I use a piece of paper towel, I'll wet it, put it underneath, and it'll keep it nice and sturdy. I'm going to do that real quick. And I kept it without the paper on purpose so I can show you guys this. So if you have a white cutting board, you want to just put one piece on each end. So I'm going to do one here. One on this side. So now the board is nice and firm on the cutting board. It's not moving, it's not sliding, it's going anywhere. So that's one tip. I want to make sure you guys do that. So when you're cutting, you're not sliding and cut yourself by accident. All right. So
do that first, for wooden cutting boards too, or is just the plastic kind?
No, you could, because I'm doing chicken, I try to avoid using the wooden cutting board with raw meat. Reason being because, especially with chicken or pork, something that, because I don't want the board to have all the juice to kind of seep into the board. So even when you wash it, if it goes deep inside the board, it's hard to get that out. So we want to try to avoid salmonella or any bacteria to go into your board. So I try to use that plastic board instead, so that's easier to wash and get everything off. So soap and water, you wash that off. But when you do the cutting board, you more kind of do the surface, and if it seeps into the wood, so it's hard to get that out. So I try to save that for my fresh vegetables, my fruits, and any finished meat can go on the wooden cutting board.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure. So with this dish, because we're going to be stuffing it, when you have the whole breast like this, so what I try to do, what's called a butterfly. So we're going to cut it down the center, but you're not going to cut all the way through where it's going to go a piece like this and it's going to open wide, making a flat base for you to put all your stuffing in so then you can roll it. So I'm going to demonstrate that. So what you want to do is get your knife right down the middle, and you put a hand on top to kind of hold it firm. And you go nice and easy. You don't want to go too fast so you don't cut down towards the end. And you want to go slowly when you pick up one side and slowly kind of cut nice and easy with the tip until you feel you have a nice flat base. So now you have this wide piece like this. The next thing you want to do is you want to pound it to kind of get it nice and even. when you're looking at a breast, you have the one side that's very thick and then it leans down. So if you keep it that way, one side is gonna overcook and the other side is not gonna be, so you're not gonna have an even cooker. So what I try to do is I put a piece of plastic right over. And if you have a meat pounder, and if you don't have a meat pounder, you can use anything heavy that you have to pound it to get a nice and even piece of it. So I'm doing like this, and as you do it, you want to kind of pound on the outside to spread it out some more so you have more room to kind of roll it after you put all your ingredients in.
Okay, as you're pounding, Chef, can we ask you another question?
Absolutely.
So this one is, I think, a general cooking question. What is the difference between stock and broth?
Quite frankly, it's terminology. It's the same.
Oh, okay, good.
It's the same. If someone say broth or stock, it's the same thing. I like to make mine fresh, and I mean, I can quickly talk you through that. So basically, when you make your own at home, when you're chopping vegetables, carrots, celery, onions, all these extra stuff that you have, you can put them in a pot, water, and if your chicken bone, any of the scraps, like the back of the chicken, when you take everything out, you put it in there and just put some herbs, aromatics in there, and just bring it to a boil and just let it simmer for several hours. And all the flavor from the bone marrow, the herbs will infuse, and that's what's going to create your stock. In other words, your broth. That's it. So if you're doing, fish, chicken, or beef, same concept. All right.
Awesome. So that'll be a good thing to do after Thanksgiving with the turkey carcass, right?
Yes. Well, it's best when you have the bones, that uncooked bones. You'll still have great flavor afterwards, but with the uncooked bones or scraps and everything else, so you have more flavor coming from the meat and the bones from that as well. Because by that, after it's cooked, the bone marrow is already cooked, so all the marrow is already cooked on the inside. You will still get great flavor out of it, but it's best to have with the raw bones.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. All right, so gonna put that over there. So like right now, my chicken is nice and flat. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna go through all the ingredients that we have here, guys. I'm gonna wash my hands, bear with me. One of the things we do a lot in the kitchen, we gotta make sure we wash our hands whenever we touch anything else so we don't cause any cross-contamination. You wanna go from meat and touching, another cutting board, a knife, and so that's the best way to protect ourselves and not get sick. All right, so now what I'm gonna walk you guys through all the ingredients we have here before we get started. I'm gonna zoom in. So here for the chicken, I have my mixed spice here, which I have the mixed herbs. I have, all the herbs that I have on the list there. The only thing I added on here, and then if you do have it at home, is some onion powder and garlic powder for just some added flavor. So if you have that, feel free to throw some of that in there. Again, I have oregano, I have basil, I have some dry parsley that's mixed into the spice. Here I have some kosher salt. And one thing I'll tell you guys also is try to use kosher salt or sea salt or pink Himalayan salt. Please try to stay away from the iodized salt that you get at the store, dollar salt, because that salt is bleached. The kosher salt, the Himalayan salt, those are naturally processed, so you don't have all this bleached stuff, the processed stuff that's in there. It's definitely not healthy for you. So kosher salt, sea salt, Himalayan salt is what I recommend to use. All right, the next ingredient I'm gonna have in there is I have some roasted peppers. And again, I roasted those myself. Feel free to, of course, you can get those at the store. I'm a chef. I like to cook fresh with everything that I have. So I basically, with this, I take a whole pepper, put it on top of my stove and just let it cook. Or you put it in the oven and just let that roast. And then just take the skin off and you have beautiful roasted peppers. All right. Next, we have the corn. So what I did with this, again, staying in the fresh ingredients, what I do is I take a whole corn. So I give you guys a trick to get your corn done really quickly. So I take half the husk off of this put it in the microwave for about 3 minutes, and it's cooked. From that point, you can kind of cut it right off the core there, and then you can just scrape it off, and you come up with this. So now I can saute this on a stove, get some nice char marks on there, and that's going to be inside my chicken as well. All right, and next we have spinach. You could use, I use the fresh spinach, and if you can't get your hands on some fresh spinach, you could buy the one at the store from the freezer. Make sure you thaw it out and drain it out, but again, try to go with the fresh. We're gonna chop that down really fine, and that's gonna go inside my stuffing as well. We have our herbs here, extra virgin olive oil, some black pepper. I use a crushed pepper, fresh. Yes, so these are all the ingredients, and of course, we can't forget our lobster. So I bought a lobster tail, which I'm gonna take the shell off, chop it up, and that season it, and that's gonna be inside my chicken as well. All right, so let me go through that. So first things first, I'm gonna drizzle some olive oil right on here. Not too much, just enough to kind of cover a little bit. I'm gonna do some kosher salt, some of my mixed spice. All right, and then I'm gonna chop up my spinach. So if you guys are cooking at home, you want to just grab a bunch of spinach, kind of pull it together with one finger or with one hand, and then just chop. And you kind of just spread that all around. So you don't want to do it too thick because you have multiple ingredients in here. So you want to just kind of do one thin layer on here because you have multiple ingredients. Now, if you were doing just spinach and peppers, you can incorporate more of that one ingredient, but because I have multiple ingredients, I want to just keep it a nice easy layer so that I have enough room to roll it and stuff it. All right, so we're gonna do the corn just like that, and then we're gonna chop my peppers. So for this, you could chop it down, or you can make strips. In this case, I'm gonna make strips with it. It doesn't matter, it's gonna be inside the stuffing. So you can chop it or make strips. Put that right here. And now I'm gonna work with my lobster. So same thing. So what I'm gonna do, because I don't want to use my wooden board to put the lobster on, I'm gonna move my chicken over. Now, typically, if I was doing two separate dishes, I wouldn't share the board with my chicken and my lobster because it's gonna go inside the chicken. There's no cross-contamination happening because it's gonna go inside my chicken. If I was doing the lobster separately for another dish, that would be on a separate cutting board. All right. So when you have the lobster tail like this, all right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my knife. I'm not sure if you guys already bought your lobster meat or if you have the tail or the whole lobster. So I have the tail. Just gonna put my knife right in the center. Just gonna give it a punch. Just gotta get right through the shell there. It's a little hard, and press down, turn it around. And then once I go like this, I'm able to pull out the meat right out of it. So now, even like if you're doing shrimp, if you're doing any type of seafood, normally I probably save these if I'm doing a lot to make seafood stock. Great flavor come out of the shell, believe it or not. So we have the shrimp shells, the lobster, and all those. I'll be adding those to a pot of water, and the herbs and spices, and that'll be my seafood stock as well. But I'm gonna throw that away. And I'm gonna take my lobster, I'm gonna chop it up real fine.
Now, Chef, that looks like a wonderful knife with all of the stuff that you're doing. What kind of knife is that?
All right, so mine is a Japanese knife. So one thing I always tell folks is about knives. I'm not so much focused on the name brand of knives. I try to shop for my knife. And we bring the screen back. I try to shop for my knife based on feel. I've been cooking for over 30 years now. I've done many different knives. And until you find one, so I try to tell people, do not shop for a knife online. If you can go to a trade show or somewhere where you can actually get a handle of the knife, the main thing is you want to make sure it fits your hand properly. It's light enough for you. Some knives are heavier than others. So that's really what you want to focus on, is focusing on your grip. It feels comfortable to you. Some knives have a bigger handle. Some people have bigger hands than others. So you want to make sure you pick a knife that's good for you. So the only thing I would recommend is go with a German knife or a Japanese knife. They make the best knives. As far as brand, they can price-wise, they can go from, $50 a piece to, $500, $1,000 a piece. So it all depends on your budget and what you get comfortable with. The only thing I say is go with German or Japanese knives. Those are the best ones.
Thanks.
All right.
Quick question. How can you tell when the lobster isn't fresh anymore? So sometimes, you'll get it frozen, you'll stick it in the freezer, or forget about it for a month or two. Does freezing lobster stop time, or do you still need to eat it?
What are you referring to, the lobster?
The lobster, yeah.
All right, so the best way and that can last in a freezer for a long time. So what you want to do is, because a lot of times people just put it in a Ziploc bag and they put it in there. And even if you zip it all the way, there's some air pockets that goes in there. So that can create freezer burn. What you want to do first is you want to wrap it in plastic wrap first. You want to get a nice piece of plastic wrap. You want to wrap it really tight. Then you put it in a Ziploc bag, and that's going to last you a long time in the freezer. So that's the best way to preserve it, and you're gonna have your lobster. So you can season it ahead of time and put it in there, which is even better. But if you buy a whole bunch, you want to freeze it, make sure you plastic wrap it first, really tight, and then you put it in a Ziploc bag, and that'll avoid the freezer burns.
Great, thank you.
Sure. All right, so I'm just gonna continue to chop this here. I'm just gonna do a little season on this as well. Just gonna mix it up. And that goes right over. Again, same thing, I spread it. Like I said, if you just wanna go vegetables, you just give it completely vegetables, not a problem at all. Use your favorite vegetables. You could use asparagus, chop it down. Spinach, tomatoes, kale even. I use kale a lot. We love kale in my family, so kale will be a great substitution for the spinach if you're not a fan of spinach. All right, so now, I've got all my ingredients in. I'm gonna do another little bit of spice right in here. As you can see, I'm doing a very small pinch. So when I said pinch before, so I'm controlling, and I'm not doing a big pinch, just a little bit to get enough on here. So now we're ready to do the roll. What you want to do is, when you're doing the roll, you want to put it horizontal so that you have a nice long roll. So you don't want to go this way, then it's going to be stuffed too big, and it's going to take longer to cook. So you want to roll the long way. So when you roll, you do the first roll, and you want to tuck the ends in, and then you roll again. So now and then what you want to do is you want to get your hand over on the other side. You pull the stuffing back, and then you continue to roll until you get a nice, perfect shape, just like that. All right. So now the only thing here, which I recommended that you get butcher's twine to kind of tie it. Fortunately, I couldn't find that at the store when I went there. I'm not at home. I have all my supplies at home. So what I'm going to do to make sure that the stuffing doesn't come out, which you can do as well, you want, when you put it down in the pan, you want to make sure you put the seam side down first. So like right now where the other piece kind of overlap, you want to put that down on the pan first, then that's going to lock everything in. It's going to sear it. It's going to make sure everything stays inside. All right, so right now I'm going to put that aside and kind of work on the other stuff. I don't want to start the chicken too early. So the one thing you want to make sure as you're cooking, guys, you want to make sure that you time yourself based on what you're making. So like right now, if I sear the chicken, put it in the oven, by the time I'm done with everything else, my chicken is going to be done and it's going to start to dry out. So I'm going to try to balance everything and kind of time myself accordingly. So the next thing I'm going to do is work on the other item that's going to take a little while to cook is my potatoes.
So while you're making the potatoes, can you just leave the chicken on the counter? Do you need to put it like in a a Tupperware in the fridge or what?
No, you don't. No, you don't need to do that because of the period of time that you're cooking with it. You don't need to do that. Now, if it was going to sit out for an hour, I'd say definitely put it in the fridge. But for the duration of time while you're cooking, you don't need to put it in the fridge. All right.
Yep. And you mentioned again, it's a horizontal roll versus right, for the rolling of the chicken.
Correct. So you want to get a nice wide roll so that it's not stuffed too much on one side. But otherwise, there's the meat on the inside, because when you roll, if there's too much raw chicken on the inside, outside will cook and inside will still be raw or not completely cooked. So you want to make sure it's nice and wide, where it's more of the surface all around, so that you're going to have an even cook. And the vegetables on the inside also help to give you some moisture. So you have the spinach that has water in it. So once it starts to cook, the water will start to seep out. You have the roasted peppers, you have the corn, all of those, once it starts to get heat, the water content is going to explode in there, mixed with the spices. That's what's going to keep moisture inside your chicken. So that's why it's always great to do stuffing with those kind of ingredients, because then it helps to keep your chicken nice and moist. All right.
Now we had one of my other sorors was complaining that sometimes her chicken dries out. So just as a general tip, what can you do to make sure that your chicken breast doesn't dry out?
Because my chicken breast can dry out at times.
All right, so
sure, you're not the only one. It does happen.
I get this question a lot. So I get the biggest question I have is when they're making a whole chicken, a whole bird. So the one trick that I use that has worked every time, and which adds a lot of flavor as well. When you have your chicken, instead of doing your traditional stuffing, you could do your stuffing on the side. What I do is I take an orange, I cut it in quarters or eighths, and season it with the same seasoning that you do your chicken, and I stuff it in there, with, and add some butter. So again, while it's cooking, the pulp is getting hot and it's releasing the juices inside. So now when your chicken is cooking on the outside, the moisture on the inside is releasing inside the chicken onto the breast, heat coming up on top, and then the moisture on the inside. So that's gonna maintain moisture in your chicken as well. So that's one way to keep your bird, whether you're doing turkey or the whole chicken, that's the best way to do it. Again, it's gonna create that juice on the inside to create that steam, to keep it nice and moist at all times. When you're baking that whole chicken, one thing I do also is very important. You wanna get your temperature really hot to about 450, and you put it in for about 20 minutes. And when you get the skin nice and you get that nice crust on to happen, then you want to put aluminum foil on top. You want to close it, kind of create steam to help it cook evenly. And in the last 20 minutes or so, you want to remove that and then let it cook with the skin, so you get the nice crispy skin again. Again, it creates moisture, keep your chicken nice and moist. All right, so that's the trick for that. When you're doing chicken breast like this, almost the same thing. You want to first you want to sear it first, which I'll show you the searing process. What that searing is a process of locking the juices inside the chicken. If I put this on a pan that's not hot enough, the juices will start to release right away. So all the juice from the chicken will extract from the meat. Then that's where the moisture is. It's in the juice from the meat. Searing it helps to lock the juices in. And then once you put it in the oven, all the juices kind of work into itself with the meat, and it's not staying in your pan on the outside. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jeff, carry on.
All right. So now we're going to work with, I'm using the purple sweet potatoes. You have an option of peeling it depending on the texture of the skin. Some potatoes have thinner skin than others. That purple potato has a harder skin, so I'm not gonna cook it with it. So if you're doing roasted potatoes, you can do it skin on. And the reason I recommend doing skin on with most of your veggies is most of the nutrients, believe it or not, is in the skin. And that's why I don't boil my vegetables. I steam them instead, because once you boil it, most of the nutrients, vitamins, and that you need gets extracted into the water that you dump in the sink. So I steam them instead. And when I'm roasting, if it's not a hard skin, I keep the skin on. In this case, this is a hard skin. I'm gonna peel it off. But you're doing roasted potatoes, skin on. Carrots, wash it, roast them, skin on. It's great too. You don't even need to peel it. But in this case, I'm gonna peel that because the skin is hard on this potato.
I admit I'm a little surprised to see you using a vegetable peeler versus a knife.
Well, I mean, it's for speed of certain things like this. If I'm doing like a bigger, let's say I'm doing butternut squash, I'd be doing a knife because then I can just cut straight down. So, actually, with a knife, this will take me a lot longer because it's a smaller, more rounded. The wider it is, easier it is to use a knife. I actually got to put this knife away because I was doing my chicken with it.
Okay. I have one of those. I love it too, but when you watch the shows and stuff, you're not really sure. Like, is that a cheat? Is that a shortcut? So glad to see that you're using regular tools like the rest of us.
Can you repeat that? I lost you there for a second.
No, I was just saying that I'm glad to see that I'm not the only one. Like, you're a chef, and you're using a potato peeler just like I do. So.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. All right, so over on this side, I'm gonna get a new knife. So what I'm gonna do with this, because it's very skinny, just for presentation purposes, I'm gonna cut it on a bias. And I'm probably gonna do about a 1/4 inch thick. I don't want, because I want that to roast fairly quickly. The thicker it is, the longer it's gonna take to roast. So I'm gonna do about a 1/4 inch thick. Just about, let's see, I don't know if you guys can see that, just about this much. And I do it more elongated, again, for presentation purposes. It looks better that way.
So we got another.
As I cook, whatever I do, before I even begin, I want to make sure that the finished product looks good. So I always tell people eat with their eyes. And food can taste amazing. You go to a restaurant, and if they put it in front of you, it doesn't look good, you're not gonna be so excited to eat, as amazing as the dish could be. So I want to make sure that presentation is there once the food gets on your table. It's actually proven that your eyes and your palate have a connection. Once you see something that looks good, you start to salivate, right? And so that's basically what happens. Is it sends a signal to your palate that something great, you're expecting something great. So that's why, as a chef, or when you go to a restaurant, the plate looks good and you're excited, a smile comes on, it's because you're ready to eat. The food looks kind of blah, you're like, hey, I'm not so excited. And trust me, when you put in your mouth something, you're like, it's not so great. Again, it's your palate is talking to you, so you gotta work on presentation.
Okay, so what if, we have someone put in the comments, I roast my sweet potatoes with the.
I'm losing you again.
Oh, can you hear me now? How about now?
Now I can.
Okay.
Now I can.
The comment says, I roast my sweet potatoes whole. Does this help preserve the nutrients? So if you don't do any kind of peeling and you don't cut them, you just roast it whole in the oven, does that help preserve the nutrients of the sweet potato?
Did you say if you're doing a whole potato?
Yes. Yes.
All right, so if you're doing a whole potato, yes, you don't want to peel it. What you want to do is you want to season with some salt and pepper on the outside, a little bit of olive oil, put it in aluminum foil and put it in the oven. And what you want to do is you want to get a fork and go kind of all around. I'll show you. You want to poke it a few times. You kind of turn it around and you poke it a few times. So that helps to let the heat go inside the meat all the way through, so that the skin kind of stay nice and crispy. If you don't poke it, the steam on the inside is just gonna break the skin. So it helps to release the moisture on the inside through the holes, and the flavors kind of incorporate inside also. The salt and pepper and the olive oil through these little holes, it helps to go inside your potato as well, creating some amazing flavor. All right?
Thanks, Chef.
Sure. All right, so we got my potato. I'm gonna grab a bowl to mix that up. Give me 1 second here. There we go, right here. I'm gonna put that in a bowl. The same mixed spice that I use for the chicken, I can use the same spice in here. And if you like garlic, you could chop up some garlic, kind of toss that in there as well, create some amazing flavor.
And I think we have one more potato question.
Yep.
Okay. How horrible is it to microwave your potatoes?
Oh, don't do that. No. No.
Rush.
Don't do that, please. Just put it early enough. All right. Put one in the microwave and put one in the oven. When it comes out, you can tell the difference. So if you don't have the patience for it, you want to get some mediocre potatoes, go ahead and do the microwave. But I would refrain from doing that if you can. All right.
Thanks, Chef.
I'm not going to judge if that works for you. I'm not going to judge. But I'll tell you as a chef, the potato, it takes about 45 minutes. And so just put it in there and forget it. Set your timer and you're fine. Now, if you're in a rush,
have you tried to put them in the air fryer or the Instant Pot now? Because that's the new thing.
That's the new thing. And you know what? I can't speak on that because I haven't used the air fryer. And that's now on my list to try because there's quite a few dishes I want to try on it. You know, but I understand, you know, even just, you know, cooking some meats and stuff is healthier. And so I am going to get ones, but I'm not going to comment on the air fryer because I don't have experience with it.
Okay, well, when you try it, you got to come back and do another demo using the air fryer.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so what I did in here, I have my olive oil and the spices there, so I'm going to add a few more herbs. Have some parsley here. The other one's more fine, and this is kind of larger, to kind of create some color on the outside, and you see the specks of the herbs when it's done. Just a little parsley, a little oregano. Plus, I have some fresh rosemary. So right here, I have what we would call our aromatics. We have some fresh basil, thyme, rosemary. So I'm gonna take some of these fresh ones, chop them up, and kind of toss that in there as well. You could do the same thing with the chicken. Again, it infused some fresh flavor in here. So before I put this in the oven, I'm actually gonna chop some of that and kind of put it on top. So I'm gonna just pull a few of the rosemary.
So Chef, just letting you know, you're going in and out a little bit.
I am?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe let me see if I get this closer. I'm not sure if it's, is that better?
You're still out a little bit. It's very faint.
It's not good. If I'm closer, can you hear me better?
A little bit, yes.
That's interesting. So has it always been that way, or it just started just now?
No, it just started.
Right when you put the olive oil on the potatoes, you started to fade out a little bit.
Interesting.
But now we hear you fine. I think that's good now.
Okay, all right.
Yes, you're back in.
So just because you faded out a little during the potatoes, can you just do a quick rundown of what you did with them?
Yeah, so with the potatoes, I have the mixed herbs that I had with the onion powder, garlic powder. Again, if you have fresh garlic, you You can chop up some fresh garlic and incorporate that in there. I have extra virgin olive oil, and if you have the extra virgin olive oil, regular olive oil, you have, avocado oil, any type of oil you have. I love the extra virgin olive oil. It has another layer of flavor to this. Avocado oil is very subtle. You're not gonna get much taste out of it. So depending what if you're just making a salad, avocado oil is great for that. But the extra virgin olive oil, that's what I use here. What I shared before was the fresh herbs. I have some fresh rosemary, fresh thyme, some fresh parsley. I'm gonna chop up some of the fresh rosemary onto the potato and a little bit of the fresh thyme in there as well. That helps to add some amazing flavors.
Now, do you grow your own herbs?
I did at my other house. I'm actually looking to build a larger garden at my house. So that's my goal now, to have everything from my vegetables to my herbs and everything at the house. So that'll be a project for next year. I really wanted to do it this year, but I have some other projects, administrative stuff I'm doing in my office at home. I know it'd be the perfect time during COVID to do the garden, but I'm working on some business stuff right now, which I'm putting all my energy on. But hopefully next year I'll be able to get my garden built. But I do have, what I do have is a lot of farmers that I work with. I go directly to my farmers for mostly everything that I use for my catering services. Even for home, I have a relationship with tons of farmers and that was the beauty when I left New Jersey. We loved the farms here, and when I moved to Mass, they had some amazing farmers up there as well. So it's about building a relationship, find the best farmers that have the best products, and I go directly there and pick my own stuff. So don't have my own garden, but I know I have some people I can get my stuff from.
Very good.
So I'm going to chop this down. So with the rosemary, you don't want to kind of put that in there with the whole big chunk, but you want to buy them big chunks of rosemary. The finer it is, it starts to release the essence of the rosemary. So you want to chop it fine, so you're not biting on big chunks of rosemary. I'm gonna take some of the thyme. All right, so just another tip for you guys: if you're using fresh thyme, so a lot of times people are having a hard time pulling the herbs off of the stem. What you want to do is you want to hold it from the top, and then you want to pull down, and everything comes off just like that, and just the herbs stay in your hand like this. You have beautiful herbs in your hand like that. So a lot of times people are doing it the wrong way. You're pulling down, and it gets stuck. This breaks. Once you put it upside down and you pull down on the opposite direction of where the herbs are pointing, everything comes right off. All right, I'm gonna just mix that with my rosemary and just chop that up.
Now, for the at-home chefs that are thinking about growing some herbs in their garden, what would be your top 3 that you would tell people to grow?
Basil, rosemary, and thyme. Those are your top 3. Those are main ones that I put in my dish. Now, if I'm doing something different, I use, like oregano or sage. For your top 3, basil, oregano, thyme, and that's it. Yeah, rosemary, thyme, and basil. Parsley. You could get that anywhere. I think the things that you get the most flavor out of is your thyme, rosemary, and basil. If you want to add another one, parsley would be your next one. All right?
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so I'm going to add those in here. Add a little bit more, and I'm going to add some crushed black pepper.
Oh, shoot.
And just a little bit more oil to incorporate all the herbs. And then I'm going to put it in a sheet pan and get that in the oven. And then continue on with the rest of the stuff. So I have a baking sheet. So one thing I do to avoid the mess, if you want to use a piece of parchment paper, put that right over. Put that right here. Make sure you lay them flat, spread out. And I'm gonna get that in the oven. And that's gonna go for about 20 minutes. I'll check it at 15 and maybe see if it's, you know, tender enough. Again, depending on the freshness of the potato or sweet potato that you're using, it may take a little bit longer than. So you wanna always check it halfway and turn it so you got the roast on both sides, all right? Now I'm gonna work on searing the chicken. I'm gonna use some of the fresh herbs again, as mentioned, so I can do on the outside also. So you have flavor on the inside, flavor on the outside. You know, it's one thing, you guys, sometimes you get a piece of steak or meat and you just taste outside and you get such great flavor, and then inside has nothing. So that's why I try to make sure I season both sides. And when you flatten it also using a meat pounder, what it helps to do is create grooves so that the seasoning kind of get all the way on the inside. Through those grooves, it helps to infuse inside the chicken. So we want to season inside and outside. Same thing with the rosemary, peel from the top. You can see everything comes off right off the stem. I'll get some rosemary. So at the time. And the one thing that my fresh basil, typically I put some inside the chicken as well. I actually missed that. So I'm gonna chop some, mix it with the other herbs, and put it right on the outside also. Now, for those of you who are not so familiar with using a knife, or if you're not in the kitchen a lot, one trick to avoid cutting your tips of your fingers is always tell people the first rule of thumb in the kitchen, the very first thing you'll learn when you're in the kitchen, you want to make sure you tuck your fingertips in. So you want to make sure that the back of your hand kind of create a base for you, and where your fingers are tucked in and that thumb goes on the inside, so you're not cutting the tip of your finger. So I go like this, and you kind of use that as a guide to kind of help me chop down. And you'll never cut your fingers that way. Make sure your thumb is on the inside, and it helps to guide you and protect your fingers.
It's a good tip. We're gonna have to practice that.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna do a little bit of olive oil right on here. Get my herbs. Wish you guys were here to smell these herbs though. It smells amazing.
We wish we were there too.
Hopefully those cooking are really enjoying this. So what I'm gonna do with the rest of the herbs that's on my board, I'm just gonna make sure I take all that flavor on the inside, outside, all around. And then I'm gonna transfer it to sear my chicken. All right, so I'm gonna start to clean things up a little bit here. Put that aside. It's out of the way. That. Still like this. Butter. That. So one thing as I'm cooking, I always like to clean. I don't like a messy area, so I'll make sure after each step, I try to clean as much as possible. By the time you're done cooking, your kitchen is not a disaster.
I feel like there's two different kinds of chefs: those who cook as they go along, and those who just wait until the end. So.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been on both sides. I was that chef who had everything a mess all over the place early on in my career.
Yeah.
And over time, as I start to go into some clients' homes, and some of them are very particular, and you could tell from the home you walk into, the kitchen is very meticulous. So I had to learn to make sure I'm not in my own kitchen. I'm not in a commercial kitchen, so I had to make sure I kind of clean as I go, because most of the time you're doing an event and their guests are walking right through the kitchen. They want to see what the chef is doing, so it's not a good look to have your kitchen looking a mess. And so I want to make sure I clean as I go. So I make that a practice now. As I cook, I clean. Again, that's always been with me as far as washing hands, but yeah, very, very important. All right, so I'm gonna move this out of the way. What's the next thing I'm gonna do? So now we're gonna move over that way to sear the chicken. I'm gonna move the camera so you guys can see a little bit closer.
No, we're with you, Chef. We're
all right. And the picture quality is still fine?
Yes.
Beautiful.
You sound great too. We can hear you really well.
Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna grab my oil, get my fire on.
Now is that your EVOO, your extra virgin olive oil that you're using?
Yes. Yep. And so again, very important, you want to make sure that your pan is really hot. That's the searing process we're going to do now. So I have that on. I'm not going to put any oil in it yet, because what happens is I don't want to, the sooner you put the oil, it starts to break down the components of the oil. So I want to make sure my pan is very hot first. Then I put my oil, so the flavors are still in there, and then I put my chicken in. Mistake a lot of chefs make, or cooks, home cooks, they put the oil on and then they start to heat up their pan. The oil starts to burn, and all the flavors start to come out of it. And then you have the burnt flavor that kind of stays behind. So you want to keep it as fresh as possible. Your pan extremely hot, put the oil in, and then you put your stuff in, and then you sear it real quick. And then you have the best flavor.
Now that's a pretty pot. Can you just use like a cast iron skillet?
Yes, preferably cast iron is what I would recommend. At home, that's what I have now. Unfortunately, I'm not in my kitchen, but cast iron is what I would recommend. You get the best flavor out of that. You get better sear out of it. You get better flavor coming from a cast iron.
Okay.
And for the home cooks who do not have a cast iron, I would recommend using a non-stick pan. It's easier to work with. I'm comfortable using this, but as you see, the meat will stick to this a lot more, but this will work better with a home cook, someone who's not so familiar. If you don't cook a lot, it's kind of a little bit hard to cook with this. So a non-stick pan is best to use when you're searing.
Okay.
So now the one way to start to know when your pan is hot. So I kind of put my hand, I start to feel the heat coming from the pan maybe about an inch above it. And now I'm gonna put my oil in.
Uh-oh, Chef, looks like you're frozen.
You there?
Yeah, we're still here.
All right, seems like I lost you for a second.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna add some butter.
Ooh.
You don't want that. I'll explain to you why this happened, okay?
Okay.
And I'll show you how to put it out too. Just like that. And I'll tell you what happened. So, reason that happened, the heat, let me turn the fan on. Can you guys still hear me with the fan?
Yeah.
There we go. I knew that was gonna happen.
Uh-oh.
All right, give me a second, let me open the door.
Okay. It happens to me from time to time too. And just a reminder for our guests that are watching, if you have any questions for the chef, please go ahead and put them in the chat. It could be about the dish. It could also be
Open that back door, please.
just any kind of cooking questions that you have as well.
So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, so what happened with this is the butter that I use, I got this butter from this fridge here. So there's some butters have more water content than others, and water doesn't work well with oil. So the minute I put the butter in the hot pan, it releases the water out of the butter real quick. So with the combination of water and oil, that's what the flame kind of went up right away. So you want to make sure you get a good quality butter. This, I got it from the fridge, you know, so it's not, you know, I try to use the ones I use in the kitchen, unsalted butter, really good quality butter, so it has less water content. So the more water content you have, the water's gonna release really quick into your pan, and with the combination of oil and butter, so that's why the flame went up real quick. So if that happens, when you have flame happens like this, don't panic. I quickly take it off the pan so that you don't have, if there's any grease in here, the fire will kind of extend into your stove. All you have to do is just cut down the oxygen. So you put another pan right over it, it'll cut the fire right out. All right, so in the kitchen, anytime you have that happen, just put a pan right over it, cut the oxygen, the air, and the fire will go right out. All right, guys? So I'm gonna switch this pan, get a fresh pan.
Okay.
And we're gonna get our thing going. So in this case, I will not use that butter. I'm just gonna just stay with the olive oil.
Okay. Now there's some people sometimes who are watching their like fat content, and so they use margarine instead of butter. Would you say like butter first, then olive oil, and then margarine, or would you like how would you rank them?
No, just oil first, then your butter. If you're using margarine, what have you. But just want to make sure if you're doing that, just make sure your fire is not at its highest peak, and you want to put it a little bit sooner so that by the time you put it, it starts to dissolve slowly. In my case, my fire was higher, and so with the water content in it, kind of released from the butter real quick, and that's why it ignited right away.
Got it. Do you have a favorite brand of quality butter that you'd recommend?
I buy more commercial, so not necessarily one I can share with you right now, but I can certainly shoot you a note and you can post it later on.
There you go. Let's do that.
All right. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to transfer the chicken. I'm going to zoom in, turn the fire down a little bit.
Yep, that's a good view.
Good. All right, perfect. So because I don't have the chicken tied, so I want to make sure I handle it really well, so that I put again the side that kind of creates the seam. You want to put that down first. Washing my hands up here. And so what you want to do is kind of get it there for probably about 30 seconds. And then you want to flip on the other side. So you kind of get all four sides or all around, and with it get a nice sear. So what you want to do is don't move it yet. And I know sometimes we're tempted to see, oh, is it, you skip it down and just do a light pickup. Once you start to get a nice golden brown color, then you can turn it. So you want to use 2 pair of tongs or a spatula, whatever. In my case, I'm used to using my hands. You want to do that at the home side? So I'm going to turn it.
Oh.
So I'm going to hold it like this, get in my oil so that it doesn't break open. Now, if I had the butcher's twine and I would make a tie on each end, it will hold it together. Now you can see the color, and once you get that nice sear, that's what you're gonna get. Now I'm gonna turn the other side. So I kind of turn all around, make sure I get a nice sear all around. Probably about 30 seconds on this side, just enough. Turn the other side. And with the herbs that are searing right now too, the flavor is amazing. And that's the one part when you cook it, you have all these beautiful spices kind of mixed together. You have the rosemary, you have the parsley, the thyme, all these flavors kind of fused together, you get some amazing flavor. So like right now, it's searing up, as you guys can see, all around, you got a perfect sear all around. So that's basically what you're looking for. The juices are locked in, and once you cook it, it's gonna be amazing, nice and juicy. All right, so now I'm gonna transfer it to my oven. I'm gonna put it right next to my potatoes.
So someone just asked, what about the potatoes? So they're in there just hanging out.
Yep. Oh, they're in here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put my chicken next to it, and I'm gonna flip the potatoes, make sure I get a nice roast on there. And turn this so you guys can see right here.
Okay. Yep.
So what I'm gonna do is just put my chicken right next to it.
Now, could you, if you wanted to, cook that chicken in the, for those of us who have cast iron, would you recommend to cook it in the cast iron skillet or just right on the cookie sheet?
Yeah, if you have the cast iron, you can put the cast iron right in there. Yeah, you don't even need to take it out. So if you have a pan, this one, the handle that I'm using on the Saute pan is not one that can go in the oven. Right. That's why I'm transferring it. But if you have one, but what I would recommend, make sure you drain the excess oil that's in the pan. You want to drain that first.
Got it.
All right. Still with me?
Yep.
Still with you.
All right, good. So now we're gonna be working on the items for our sauce, okay?
Yes.
So I'm gonna get this back on the tripod. It just kind of came off, so bear with me 1 second, guys.
Take your time.
There we go. Touch this tight. There we go. All right. I'm gonna move this back. So now I'm gonna work on. I'm actually going to flip the potatoes. It smells so good. All I'm doing right now is flipping the potatoes. Make sure I get a nice cross on both sides. All right, so now we're gonna work on our sauce. Again, now, as you can see, I'm not wiping this board because all that was on there is herbs, and which is beautiful. So you don't want even to get rid of that. There's nothing that's gonna, cross-contaminate anything. So right now for my shiitake mushroom, I have those beautiful shiitake mushrooms. Again, if you don't have shiitake mushrooms, you could use wild mushrooms, you could use button mushrooms, you could use, Bella mushrooms, so any mushroom you like. I love shiitake mushrooms, so I'm using that. You want to make sure you take the stem off. You can pull it right off.
So what if you're one of those people who don't like mushrooms at all because you don't like the texture, you think they're fungus?
So you can use this, do the sauce without that. I mean, it's just another layer of flavor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up some shallots, saute it. And in that case, where you add some butter, and then you kind of whisk some flour in, and then you add your wine, and then that'll be that. because I'm doing the shiitake mushroom, I want to saute them first, kind of get some of that flavor out before I incorporate the wine. So I'm going to do the shallots, some olive oil, the butter, and then saute the mushrooms. Then I'm going to incorporate some flour. So the flour helps to give it some consistency. When you have the sauce where you drizzle and it's like just kind of watery, the flour helps to give it some more consistency. It's nice and nice, smooth sauce. All right, so again, you can use your knife to just kind of cut the stem off, or you can just kind of pull it off just like that. And I'm just gonna create strips.
Fingers nicely tucked in.
So that should be enough. It's just one chicken. So again, depending on if you love mushroom, you gotta put as much as you want in there, as long as you have a nice balance with the masala wine.
Chef, it looks like you froze again.
Are we together?
Yep, we're back.
Perfect. All right, so I have my mushroom. Clean that up. So we're gonna shift over this way again so I can kind of show you guys the process with the sauce. I'm gonna move my camera over.
Okay.
And we're gonna zoom in again. Zoom on this one. All right, looks like my zoom is not coming in to zoom on this one, but I put it close enough and I kind of talk you guys through it, okay? So right now, I'm gonna turn my fire up. So now when you're doing the sauce, you wanna go medium heat, all right? You don't want that too high, because you don't want the process to go quickly. You want a nice saute on the vegetables, medium heat. I'm gonna add some olive oil. I'm gonna turn it down low so I can chop up some of my shallots.
Now, shallots like an onion, right? So if you don't have shallots, could you use onions?
Yeah, so shallots is in the family of onion and garlic. So you can use some garlic or you can use some onions as well. It has a really unique flavor. I love to use it when I make sauces. Definitely, you know, in between kind of the onion and garlic. Depending on what I'm cooking, I use, you know, garlic, but in a sauce like this, the flavor I'm looking for calls for shallots.
Okay.
And you want to chop it really fine. And you don't want too much of it because it's very strong. So you want to make sure, so I like have just about this much and chop it really, really fine. And put it in my pan. The key with this is once you put it in, you want to make sure you continue to whisk. What happens is garlic, onions, and shallots, they burn really fast. So you want to make sure you're whisking and with your fire on low so that it doesn't burn. But once it burns, you have that bitter flavor in there. So you want to make sure you have a nice even fire on there. So once you start to get more of a translucent color, then it starts to get like really, really loose. Then you want to start to incorporate your mushroom, which I'm going to do right now. I'll turn my fire off a little bit so I can get to what's going to happen here. It's going to start to saute. In about a minute, I'm going to add some salt. You don't want to add salt too early. What happens when you add salt too early, it starts to release the juices out of your mushrooms, so especially mushrooms. Mushroom, spinach, kale, you want to avoid adding salt too early when you're cooking it because it extracts the water too quickly and you don't get a nice saute out.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna add a little bit of that butter. Hopefully we don't have the same experience right now. My heat is lower, so we should be fine.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. See, now it's nice and soft, nice and sauté. It smells amazing with the shallots. So now I'm gonna add a little bit of that kosher salt. And I add just a little bit, because after I add all the other ingredients, I want to make sure I leave a little bit behind so I can control my taste. Once you add too much salt, you can't go back and fix it. You want to add a little bit at a time. So now I'm going to add my flour. So with the amount of, I probably have maybe just about a quarter cup of the mushrooms. I'm going to take probably just about a teaspoon of the flour. You don't need too much flour. It's just enough to bind it over the mushroom to have the sauce. So like right now, I have just 1 teaspoon, and that should be enough. So you want to make sure you kind of focus that really well with the mushrooms and the shallots. Then we're gonna add our Madeira wine.
Now, what kind of wine was that again, Chef?
Madeira. It's an Italian wine, beautiful flavor. It's kind of more of a sweet, kind of fruity flavor, and it creates some amazing flavor with balance with the mushrooms. It's a beautiful, beautiful flavor that creates from that. Get my stock real quick. Give me a second. All right, so I have my beef stock that I just kind of added right in the earth that I had here. I put my beef stock right in here, and I'm just gonna slowly add it to my sauce and whisking. And when you're making a sauce, you want to continue to whisk and kind of go all the way around, making sure you kind of spray from the bottom, get all the flavors off, and incorporate that really well. That should be enough.
So
probably add about a quarter cup of that beef stock.
So a quarter cup of beef stock. How much wine do you think you put in there? I saw you go around like maybe twice.
About a quarter cup.
A quarter cup, okay.
Yep,
Quarter cup of wine, okay.
I mean, depending on how much you're making. If you're making a big batch for a large family, you could make extra sauce. And that sauce, it goes well on all kinds of, meats also. You can put it on steak, pork. So if you want to make a big batch, add more shiitake mushrooms, some more shallots, some more wine, and make a big batch. And that freezes well too. So you want to make small batches, let it cool, and put it in your fridge, and that could last you a long time.
Nice.
You can turn my heat up a little bit. Add some black pepper. Now I'm gonna taste, make sure, my flavor profiles are there with my salt and pepper. Yeah, right there, I'm just gonna add a little pinch of salt. And basically, as you guys can see here, it starts to thicken up a little bit, and that's really what you're looking for. And as it simmers, I'm going to lower the heat and put it in the back burner. And as it simmers, it's going to thicken up some more. So I don't want it extra thick, a nice consistency where I can just kind of drizzle that over my chicken. And yeah, it's going to be beautiful. So right now, it's pretty much done. And I'm just going to put it in the back burner and let that simmer. Now, one thing I'll share too, because most people don't know that your burners at your house have different heads. So a lot of times when someone says, "Oh, I'm going to turn the heat down to low," and they keep it on the biggest burner, well, that low on that burner is kind of like a high when you're talking about simmering. So you want to make sure you move it to your smallest eye on your burner. So you have like the burners, one starts this way, it starts to get smaller and smaller. So you want to put it on the smallest one in the back with the lowest heat possible. The ones in the front have the biggest heat. So even that low on that is not a simmering low. It's going to be too high. It's going to burn your dish or dry out your sauce by the time you're ready for it. Right? Now I'm going to move the camera back, check on my chicken, answer any questions you guys have. My potatoes in here. It's smelling good in the house. My sauce is done, and answer some questions. And I'm going to double check on my chicken. And I'll talk to you guys through temperature you're looking for on your chicken to make sure it's done. Very important. Clean up a little bit here. Smells so good, guys. For those of you cooking, I hope your kitchen is smelling as good as mine is right now. And for those of you who are just watching, I hope you guys really try this dish. It's really, really good.
I can't wait to try it. I got all my ingredients ready.
Beautiful. All right, so I'm here for some questions. Chickens will be done in just a few minutes. So any questions you guys have, culinary questions, food?
Let's see. Well, I'll ask a quick one. So for the at-home cook, right? What are 5 kitchen must-haves that you would recommend? Like we talked about the cast iron skillet, but I don't know if that's in your top 5. So what are 5 kitchen?
Cast iron skillet is actually on my top 3 actually.
Oh, okay.
Cast iron is top 3. A good knife is actually number 1. A really good knife, sharp knife. Very important. And I'll talk, as we were talking about knives, I'll talk another tool you gotta have a steel to sharpen your knives. After each use or before each use, you want to sharpen it. I do mine pretty much. Once I'm done cooking, I clean it, I sharpen it for the next time it's ready. If you didn't do that before you start cooking, you want to again sharpen it. So what happens is the longer you leave it without sharpening, it gets to get really dull. And the more dull it gets, it's harder to get that sharpness that you had initially. So having one of these, have to maintain it throughout. So basically what you want to do is, and I'll talk to you guys through quickly. Let me rinse this, make sure I'm not getting dirty. So the best way to sharpen your knife, you want to go from heel, what they call the heel to toe. This is considered the toe of the knife, that's the heel of the knife. You want to go from the bottom and you go all the way over until you get to the tip. And then you do the other side. And you kind of do it. So here's the best way to think about it. You want, like right now, you got a 45-degree angle. You want your knife to be at about halfway that, which is what, 22.5. So you want, that's the angle you're looking for so that you don't mess up the tip of your the blade of your knife. So you want to get at more of a 23-degree angle, and you want to go all the way over on both sides consistently over. You see some people go up and then you want to go down. Same thing, you do the same thing, same angle, about 23-degree angle, and you want to go like this. All right, so you want to do that probably for about, a few times, maybe 10 times on each side, and you can touch it and you'll feel the difference when it's sharp. Once you're done doing that, very important, so what happens is once you sharpen it, once you start to do that, it's taking away part of that blade. And you see very, very fine particles that comes off the blade, off the metal. So you want to make sure you wipe that off. So what you just get a piece of paper towel and you just wipe it. And I'm not sure if you guys can see through here, probably very faint, but you'll see all the marks of the blade that kind of stay behind. So you want to make sure you do that before you start cutting. Sometimes you see people cutting tomatoes, they sharpen it and they cut their veggies. While that fine particles of that metal will go into your food. So you want to make sure you wipe that down. All right, so number one tool in the kitchen, you want to have good saute pans. All right, good saute pans. We talked about the steel, very important. Your knife, cutting board. You want to make sure you get a couple of different cutting boards so that you, again, what did you see me doing here? If you have only one cutting board, that means you're using one. Again, the wood one, I don't recommend using raw meat on. So if you have one, then it makes it tougher. Then you have to wash and then use again. So have different cutting boards. You know, if you want to assign one for just fruits, use your fruits, or one for veggies, you know, and so maybe about 3 cutting boards should be good. One of them, you know, is a more of a plastic to do more of your raw meats, and then the wooden ones to do more of your meats that are done, or fresh vegetables and fruits. All right, so those are the top 3, I would say. Other than that, again, like I said, a nice set of pots and pans, and that's it from there. And everything else is just like little extras. For me, I love to use the zest of like the lemons, the oranges. I use a zester, and those are great to have in your kitchen as well. A lot of great flavor from the zest. You kind of use that kind of shave, and you use that to shave your cheese as well. Or, you know, one of the benefits of this, I don't buy the cheese already grated. I use the block of cheese I grated myself. It's fresher that way. The ones I already grated gets, you know, dried out. All the flavor and aroma, because it's already grated, kind of evaporates from it. So you want to use the fresh block of cheese and use one of those grated. So this is another great tool in the kitchen.
Okay.
All right.
So we got 2 quick questions from the chat. So one of them says, when you're taking the meat, the temperature of the chicken, do you do it from the side or from the top?
So you want to go towards the center, and you want to go in the meatiest part of your meat or chicken, whatever it is. You want to go in the thickest part. So that's where you're going to truly get the right temperature. So can you imagine if you go on the side, the very thin side of it, it's going to get hotter from that end part, and you're going to have a false read. The center is really what's going to give you the true. So right now, for my chicken, I'm looking for 165. I mean, I know how to tell by touching it because I've been cooking for a long time. I know how long it takes. But using the thermometer, you want to make sure you go towards the center, and you don't want your thermometer to go all the way through, because once it leaves the chicken on the other side, it's starting to get the room temperature, so you're not gonna have the right read. You want to make sure the tip of it. Let me show you actually. So I have this right here. So when you want to go all the way down the center, and you don't want this to kind of go over on the other side. You want to keep it on the inside of the meat. Once it goes over to the other side, you get a room temperature, and you have an offset of temperature. So center, and which for chicken, you're looking for 165. If you're cooking like pork, you want 155. And as far as steaks, again, it's all based on what you like to eat. You know, there's medium rare. So all those, you start to go from like 135, it's like medium rare, you know, 140, and it's kind of medium. And once you go into that 145s, 150s, you're more into well done with steaks, which is not really where you want to go with steak, but you now start, once you start to go more on the well done side, you really lose the texture and the flavor of the meat. I go medium rare, depending on the cut of meat. So that's truly where you want to stay. If you're cooking lamb, for instance, you want to keep that more to medium rare, flavor-wise, and lamb is more, you know, have a different texture than meat. So if you go well done with that, it's gonna get very chewy. So again, use a thermometer, the digital one preferred, but if you don't have a digital one, you can use one of the $2 ones, but that's preferred. It gives you exact temperature once you get it. When you leave it in there for a few seconds, because once you first poke it in, the temperature will start to rise, and then it'll adjust itself, and it'll do a true read. So don't rush to pull it out. Put it in. It's gonna start to go up. It's gonna adjust back down, and then it's gonna settle at the temperature that it needs. Right?
And then the second question we had was, are you going to be opening up your own restaurant soon?
Well, it is in my future. I'll tell you, the restaurant industry, I had a restaurant before, not a full service restaurant. I ran a corporate cafe, which was in a high-end corporate complex. It's a beast running a full service restaurant. I have 3 kids. I have 13, 9, and 7. I want to get past the stage where I'm embracing the time I have with my kids right now. These are crucial ages. Because I travel quite often too with my business, I don't want to lose too much time with my kids. Once you go into the full service restaurant business, it's a 24/7 job, and I want to be there for my kids and be a part of their activities and school and everything that happens at school. I'm there. I'm reading at their when it's reading time at school, I'm there to read with them. And so I get involved a lot with my kids. So I don't want to lose that time. And so I'm going to push the restaurants to much later in my life, but it is definitely in my future.
All right. We'll be looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Actually,
so I think,
if
go ahead.
I could just, actually, we have another question that was sent to our inbox, but then I also have a little bit of a PSA. So the first question would be, again, what is good quality butter? Because I believe that question was missed the first time, or the answer.
All right, so.
No, he said he was going to send us the name of a good quality butter.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
I will send that over, because I use a couple of different ones. I want to make sure I send that over to you guys.
Yeah. Okay, and then the PSA is just that sometimes Facebook only allows us a certain amount of bandwidth. So there is a possibility that we could be cut off and our live could be ended. If that happens, participants, please do not go anywhere. We will be right back.
Okay, good. And same applies to me. But we're on Zoom, so it won't affect us here.
Right.
But we are almost done. I think our food is done. Our sauce is done. I'm gonna check on the chicken right now, and our potatoes are already done. So right now we're actually ready to move into plating. So we should be done right now. So I'm gonna move these things out of the way and bring my plate over. Right. I think we're good here. We are looking good. The only thing I'm going to do.
Now, Chef, if you wanted to make a whole evening of this, what would you prepare for, like an appetizer, a soup, or salad, then the chicken, and then the dessert?
Say that again?
Like if you were going to make a whole evening out of this, what would you recommend us for, like an appetizer or a salad or a soup that would prepare our palate for this dish?
Yeah. So around this time, a great salad, a nice spring citrusy salad would be great, where you can incorporate, like you do like a nice arugula salad, which I'll be doing tomorrow. I'll share with you guys too. As I mentioned, I do a cooking demo live on every Sunday at 6 p.m. So tomorrow I'm going to do an amazing arugula salad with grilled asparagus and some fruits. And so a great salad around this time, something light. I'm going to be using arugula. You could do asparagus, any because I'm going to be doing something outside on the grill. I'm going to grill my asparagus. Tossed out with it, and I'm gonna make a balsamic vinaigrette dressing. So a nice salad will be great. Fruity salad, you could use sliced strawberries. You could do sliced apples, pears, some craisins, and you do like a nice vinaigrette, and you kind of toss that together. That's a beautiful salad. All right. So that's nice. You complement that really well. And as far as wine, and I try to make some nice wine recommendation as well. Fest Barker is one of those that I really enjoy. My wife and I took a trip to California years ago, and we went to we went to wine country, and we went to the Fess Parker winery, and the wine is so amazing. We ended up coming back with a whole case. And so for those who are not into wine necessarily, this is a nice one to start with. It's a Riesling, a nice balance. It's got some sweetness to it. It's got some tart, so it's a nice one to start if you're not a wine drinker. And it goes great with the dish that we're making. Whenever you're doing like chicken or seafood, you want to stay with the more lighter wine, white wine or Riesling. So second option, which I love also, is a nice Chardonnay. Nice. The Saint Michel, I find really it's a nice one. You know, nice affordable wine to have it with a dish like this. A nice Chardonnay with seafood or chicken. You know, whether it's grilled chicken or sauteed chicken or anything like that. A nice Chardonnay goes well with that as well. And I think I give a couple other recommendations, but try to stay with a nice Chardonnay or you know, or Merlot. I mean, what was the other one? Pinot Grigio would be a nice option as well. All right. So those are the two recommendations I have for that.
All right, I'm gonna let you. Nope, that was it. I'm gonna let you plate.
All right. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just heating up the pan real quick. I have the rest of the corn that I have. I'm just gonna saute that. I'm gonna plate up and kind of use that as a garnish with my dish as well. Okay. All right. Just gonna do just a touch of oil, just a little bit. So now, as far as plating, I always try to do something different. Instead of using your regular oval plate, I try to find something unique to use. So I have a plate like this, kind of, you know, beveled, kind of, you know, deeper. So depending on what I'm serving with it, this beautiful salad would be a nice presentation with that. I have a triangular plate. So I try to find a unique plate, especially when I'm dealing with my clients. They want an experience, and I'm not just there to bring food. I bring a dining experience, and that goes into all the supplies that I bring, plates, flatware. The whole thing has to kind of work together. So I use that. So I think I'm going to use this one to plate. We'll see. Yeah, I think that'll be nice. So right now I'm going to saute the corn. Just enough to kind of give it some, you know, to make just warm it up a little bit to use that as garnish. You're going to use a little bit of kosher salt and just a touch of the black pepper. All right, so now we're going to work with our plate.
One more quick
yes,
one.
Go ahead.
Says, what about the cheese?
Say that again.
What about the cheese? I think there was cheese on the ingredient list.
What did I have?
Gruyere, maybe?
Yes. So that was a miss on my part. So with the chicken, you can do with or without. So I use the Gruyere cheese. So, you know, something when you could do inside the chicken, when you stuff it, you can do the cheese in there. If you want some nice cheese melt in there, you could do the Asiago cheese, you could do mozzarella cheese. You could even do buffalo mozzarella cheese as well to kind of give you a nice gooey texture on the inside. So that's what that cheese was for. So I missed that as far as my stuffing, but you can do it with or without. So it's just an option.
All right.
See, like right now, you see, like we have those nice grill marks on there. So that's all you do. You can just saute it right in the pan. And then now I'm gonna work on plating. I'm gonna bring my chicken on the board. So you could do, you know, one or two things as far as presentation. I try to go, you can go kind of thin it out, cut in slices and kind of thin it out, or you can kind of cut it on a bias. So what I'm gonna do with this one, similar to what I did on the Today Show, I'm gonna just cut it right down the center. See, like right now, I'm creating a height with my dish.
Oh, that's pretty.
Right? So I'm gonna put that right in here. Can you guys see the plate here?
Yes.
Let me see if I can zoom in real quick. If it works. I'm assuming it's not working anymore, so let me just bring it down. So I have the plate like this, kind of angled like that. For my potatoes, I can angle my potatoes any way I want, really. Kind of make the plate look pretty. And if you use a flat plate, kind of do the circular motion with it as well. And in my sauce, I'm gonna just drizzle my sauce right on top. Get a spoon. And you can just kind of cross that right over, get it right over the chicken. It smells so good, guys. For those of you cooking at home, I hope you guys are right along with me.
Yeah, Monet says her kitchen smells delicious.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. And then see now with the corn, it just helps to add some color. Like right now, you have this chicken right here, right? Hope you guys can see. And so the corn is just gonna add a pop of color.
Ah.
Something like that. So it gives it a little contrast. You know, you have the purple and you have the chicken, and the corn helps to add another touch of color. And then you could just really just drop a little herb right on the side of here, just for presentation. And of course, we want to make sure we're wiping it down. It's clean. So this is our finished product.
Oh, wow. Wait, a little closer, Chef. Oh, that looks yummy. Oh, yeah. Yes, that does look really okay. So,
Right.
Chef, you got to take a picture of that so that when our guests do it, they can put a side by side of their plate and your plate to see what it looks like.
Yes, I love to see what they come up with. They could definitely push it to my page. If they have little video clips, I'm happy to, you know, I'd love to have those as well. Definitely Chef Lucmann Pierre on Facebook and Chef Lucmann Pierre on Instagram. I'd love to see what they come up with. So yeah, so this is it. Very easy, guys. You know, it gives you a definitely nice gourmet look to it. But as you can see, it was very simple using, you know, basic ingredients that you would normally have in your pantry. Nice and easy to do. All right, any other questions for me?
Now, about how long do you think the chicken cooked? Because we were chatting.
That was probably about 15, 20 minutes in the oven. Now, depending, if you have a thicker piece, you want to make sure you leave it in there a little longer. But again, the key thing is making sure, I try not to give people time necessarily. The most important thing is your temperature. You want to make sure your internal temperature is at 165. Okay. As you can see, I didn't check it because I know, because I've been cooking for almost 30 years now. So by touch, by look, I could tell it's done. But having again, that was one of the tools that you mentioned earlier. Always have a really good thermometer at home. 165 is what you want to reach. You don't want to go any lower than that. 150, then it's not totally cooked and you can get sick, especially with chicken or pork. All right.
Okay. Let's see. We have a ton of applause here in the chat. We have a lot of people.
Awesome.
I can't wait to try this. This looks really good. Thank you so much.
That's great. Definitely get yourself a nice glass of wine, and if you're not into wine, you know, get your favorite beverage, make a cocktail to go along with it. But yeah, definitely a nice glass of wine with that would complement it very well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chef. I enjoyed this. I can't wait to try it myself.
Good, good, good. Well, I'm glad you guys were, you know, I was able to join you guys. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope they get to try that at home if they were cooking along with us. I'd love for them to really connect with me on Facebook. Follow me there on my Instagram. If I could plug my daughter again, she's been cooking with me for a long time now. She's 9 years old. We started cooking since, you know, she was maybe about 3 years old. And so this year we decided, okay, we're gonna do a YouTube channel for her. So we've been cooking together every Sunday. We do our Cooking with My Daddy segment. So every Sunday at 6 p.m. So tomorrow we'll be live on Facebook. So follow me on Chef Lucmann Pierre, and you guys, if you guys can join me on, and we're gonna do a beautiful dish tomorrow. And yeah, so her YouTube channel, we just set it up a few weeks ago. We're gonna start to add some more videos to it. It's Cooking with My Daddy. So if you guys look that up, you'll find her. And yeah, I'd love for you guys to support her. And when we do our videos, I encourage you guys to share with friends, let them know. As many people we have on, the better. And again, I do the same concept here. I cook and I answer questions. So I enjoy educating people while I'm cooking. So it's the same stuff we do every Sunday. And throughout the week, you know, every now and then I'll do a live. And so the more, you know, if they follow me, and they'll be able to get notifications when I'm on. All right.
Hey. Thank you so much, Tanya. I'll kick it back over to you.
All right. Do we have any additional questions from the audience?
Nope, but Kim Huffman wants you to know that Black Dads rock.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
All right. Well, if there are no additional questions, again, thank you, Chef Lucmann Pierre. Hi to his daughter.
And you can see she was sitting right next to me as I was cooking, so she was watching everything. That's how much she loves to cook.
Very good.
Very good. So thank you so much again for joining us today.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it. Again, please follow him on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, the pages that he has. We are very appreciative. But again, thank you everybody for watching RACDST TV, and we will see you next time.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye.